The additional field setting within activities gives you the opportunity to specify useful additional information when setting up an activity. To show you why this is helpful, we'll look at an example. Navigate to Activities, then Activities Setup, and click on Additional Fields. When you land on this page, it's not immediately apparent as to what's going on here. In this example, there are some fields listed on the left, and then a bunch of other lists on the right. There's a reference here to what the additional fields apply to and what they are specific to, although it's not immediately clear how this works. Let's take a look at an example of what this looks like in a real activity. Note, to do this, I've opened up another browser tab so that I can easily switch back and forth for the demonstration. I'll drop back out of Setup shortly and look at an activity from the teacher's perspective, but before I do that, I'll create an additional field for Best and Fairest. The type allows me to specify the type of response I'd like users to add. I can also specify the minimum and maximum length for the response. The value type refers to whether this will be letters, or alpha, numbers, or numeric, or both, alphanumeric. I'll come back to these selections in a moment. I'll click Save. You can see the newly created additional field here, but it's not specific to anything. It's most likely going to relate to a sporting activity, so let's see if we can find one to make this clearer. Now let's drop out of Setup and go back to the Teacher view. Viewing the Activities module now, outside of Setup, let's look at this sports category and then click Basketball as an example. I'll click on this activity. Now, you need to dig deep here, so stay with me. If I click on Edit Activity, I land on a page which allows me to specify all the main details of the activity. Scrolling down, I can see all the details, but there's nothing here that relates to the idea of additional fields. This is where we need to specify which additional fields are specific to which category back in Setup. Let's see if we can add an additional field to this activity. Best and Fairest seems like a logical choice. Going back to Setup, click on Edit for Best and Fairest. Now, here's where this becomes relevant to this demonstration. Remember how I said I'd come back to this bit a moment ago? This additional field applies to categories. In other words, it's applied to all activity categories, but it's not specific to anything. To make it specific, I'll choose the same sporting category that I'm looking at in the Teacher view. Click Save. You can see now that this additional field is specific to the sports category we are looking at when outside of Setup. Let's go there and check that. I'll go back to the Teacher view. If I refresh the page, the additional field should appear. And yes, there it is. In this field, a teacher may like to add details for this activity about students who acted in the best and fairest way. You can add as many additional fields to an activity as you need, depending on what it is, and what information you're trying to collect. And it's also important to remember to try and make these additional field names as self-explanatory as possible. That way you'll get the most value and least confusion about what the additional fields actually do.